real lives, real people. Non-Identity Podcast. The Non-Identity Podcast is sponsored by Limitless Power Boxing. Find them on Instagram for all your boxing needs. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to this week's episode of the Non-Identity Podcast. Now, this week we're joined by someone who, despite growing up with a learning disability, has decided to go on and create an amazing blog. She's also an advocate for hidden disabilities. It's Michelle Steiner. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Lee, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get into your blog and what you're advocating for, can you just let everyone know where you're from and where you grew up and stuff?
Sure. Well, my name is Michelle Steiner. I live in the United States, and I grew up in a small community right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
We said in the intro that you've grown up with a learning disability. What is your learning disability, and how has it affected your life?
Yes, I have dyscalculia. I have a math learning disability. When I was first diagnosed in kindergarten, they didn't call it that. It was more just an umbrella term of a general learning disability. And I also have visual perception, but that affects my brain, not my eyes. And I also have limited hand dexterity, but we didn't know about that until I was an adult. And when I was in school, a lot of the things that were hard for me were anything math related has always been a struggle. Counting, just how numbers work, memorizing the multiplication table, and trying to read an analog clock. I still can't do that. And just those general things of how numbers work. My eye-hand coordination was really bad. I can remember I would flinch whenever a ball would come at me. That sort of thing. Just coordinating my body was really difficult. And then the hand dexterity, things would come out of my hands. And also it affected my handwriting from the time I was young. And we thought, well, you either don't have good handwriting or else there's a lot of cases we knew with learning disabilities with people that had struggled with that. So that was something in school. A lot of people have considered that to be more of a character flaw, rather it's just something that I simply can't do. So those were the issues that we really came across with in school. As an adult, I still, just because I graduated or went on to college and have a job, there are some things that the disability hasn't gone away. I still can't read an analog clock, but thank goodness for having a Fitbit and another digital watches and clocks. That really helps out a lot. It can be tough for me to total up items when I'm at the store. It's always a surprise. And if I have a debit card, that's more of an abstract concept. I can't see the dollars and the cents moving. But if I have cash on me, I'm able to have a better relationship and an understanding of that. It can be hard for me to total a tip. And I work as a teacher's aide in the school, and all the kids and the staff know I can't help you out with math. I can help you with reading. I can help you with other things, but I cannot do math, and they're all right with that usually. I also, with my eye-hand coordination, I'm not able to drive with having that visual perception. I live in a central location where I'm able to get places. My husband's able to take me to work, and I have great coworkers that can take me wherever, can take me home, and family and friends who are also willing to help out. And I'm able to go out and walk and just be able to go where I need to go. And that helps. And the thing to help with the hand dexterity is typing. They don't have to try to read my handwriting anymore. And that was a real game changer when we learned how to do that. And also just simple things, having a can opener that is electronic rather than having a manual one is one of the things. We have jar openers. My husband even likes them too. So that makes it helpful to be able to use that with my hands.
Yeah, when you're younger, because I've got dyspraxia, but it wasn't diagnosed till I was 16. Yeah. So at school, I was just a lazy writer. I couldn't be bothered to spell. Did you find that as well until you had a diagnosis? Did you find that people just thought you couldn't be bothered, or it was you?
Times before the diagnosis, people would often think oh, well, you could do this. Or I can remember, like, when I was in kindergarten, it was pretty obvious. My teachers could catch on to what was going on. But even after that, I had people say, well, if she really wanted to learn, she could. Or and a lot of times people even to this day will look at me and say, well, you don't look like you have a disability, or what's wrong with you? And with the dropping stuff out of my hands, people would just say, well, she's just clumsy, or stuff like that. So sometimes people don't really understand, and they didn't understand it before it, and some people just don't even understand it now, and we just have to move forward. And
Say you work in a school, and it's fascinating to me because I find, like I said, with the dyspraxia, I've worked in education for the last 20 years, and I find we get a more relatable relationship with the young people, because if we notice there's a barrier for the young people, we can help go around that barrier. And I think it helps support them, because they can see, oh, my teacher's not perfect. If they can do it, then I can do it.
Oh, most definitely. Because when I was diagnosed, it just became like a lifestyle to me. It's not anything that's strange or weird. This is just simply what I need to do. And these are the things that I found that help me to be able to function. And when I work with a lot of my students, at times it's like listening to a recording of myself in 7th grade. They will come in saying, I wish I didn't have a learning disability, or I wish I didn't have an individual education plan. And what I get the chance to do is to go in and say, well, it's okay if somebody has a disability. It's all right that we have a plan. These are the accommodations that can actually help you. And it may not always be fun, but that's what you're should be doing. And I can also go into and show them how to advocate, because I think sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it can be really scary for a kid to go up and say, I really need help with something, or that I'm afraid that person's going to get mad at me, or they go the other direction and it turns into them yelling or not asking appropriately. And that doesn't work in their favor. So sometimes we have to go through, like, okay, well, these are the steps and this is how we do it. And I try even doing that a lot with my blog too, is just giving that information out to people.
You know, I totally agree. I always explain to the young people, it's not the route you take, it's just how you get there. There's so many different ways of getting to the destination, and you've just got to find the right path for you.
Exactly. Because I can remember, I knew I always wanted to go to college, and I had a learning support teacher that thought, well, you can't go because of your math skills. And I was already well aware of that, and was nervous towards how I was going to get there. And I can remember meeting with a group, a federal agency in the United States that does pay for college and accommodations and testing. And they said, well, if you want to go to college, maybe going to community would be better before university, because you don't have your standardized test scores. And a lot of them look at how well you did at community college. And I enrolled, and before I could get services from them, I had to be retested for a learning disability. And I can remember even the psychiatrist saying, you're most likely not going to go beyond community college. And I could just remember how defeating that was to me. I was already scared about going, and I had a professor that told me that I had limited job choices afterwards, and there was still that stigma with the accommodations. But if I didn't use them, my grades dropped. But if I used them, I found out I did generally pretty good, as long as it wasn't a math or a science involved with that. Yep.
So you blog now. Why did you decide to start blogging?
Well, one of the things I wanted to start blogging about was just like with having a learning disability. That was something that people always told me, you should really write about having a learning disability. And I can remember writing has always been a healing form for me, or a passion. And I can remember it's like a friend in my writing group saying that, and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to write about that. That's a little personal. And when I finally took her advice a few years later, and I wrote something, I got it published, I can just remember that was the most healing thing I ever did. And just having that connection with other people. And after a while, I thought this would be good to have a blog to be able to express that. And I did get a grant for having one, or actually a scholarship for starting one. And it just has brought me a lot of a lot of joy to be able to connect with other people. I put disability articles on there, and I connect them with metaphors. And I also just with relating to what life is like with having a disability. And I also put on my photography as well. I love taking pictures of flowers and nature. And I have people that'll tell me, you can bring out details that other people might miss in a flower. And I found some of this to be true. If, my husband and I are going somewhere, he's driving, and I say, babe, did you see that? And he goes, I'm driving. Like, you should. And if it's close enough, I'll get that chance sometimes to go back there and to be able to take that picture of the flower or whatever else I got a chance to see. And I'll put that on my blog. And I also put them out like in magazines and places like that. But it's just that connection, because I'll have people that'll tell me, I thought I was the only one that struggled with that, or you gave me the verbiage that I had. And when I hear that really is validating to me. And I just feel that it's having that connection with other people with disabilities, so we can help and we can encourage each other.
And how do you find it to be able to make that connection? Because having a one-on-one conversation, we can pick up and speak to each other in the direction we're taking the conversation. But when you're writing a blog for loads of people to read, how do you write to be able to connect to every reader?
I do my best to connect to them with speaking with my own personal experience with having one. Everyone's going to have a different experience, but this is the experience that I had. And I try to definitely use a lot of connections. Like sometimes I would talk about the scaffolding needed for me to learn as building a house, or I'll write about with nature the process of a flower blooming and how that relates to me accepting my disability. And I'll also look for the facts around it too. So it's definitely something that people are getting the information that is correct and is accurate, but it's breaking it down in a way that they can understand and a person can relate. And as I said, everyone's going to have a different experience. There's some people that might have had a different one, and that's okay too, but I can only write about the experience that I have and putting in the information that is true, that's out there.
And you're also an advocate for hidden disabilities. Do you want to explain to everyone what a hidden disability is and what message you're trying to get out there about it?
Sure. Hidden disabilities are the disabilities you can't see. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of people that'll say, when I tell them I have a learning disability, well, you don't look like you're disabled, or they're looking for the walker or the wheelchair, or something in my face that's like a visible disability that you might see. So a lot of people aren't aware of that. And I just like to always tell people, just because you can't see my disability doesn't mean that it goes away. And one of the things that I'm trying to advocate for is to show that there are disabilities we can see, and those definitely deserve attention, validation, but also there's disabilities that we can't see, and those have the same, need the same amount of validation and care as somebody who has a visible one.
And if people want to read your blog now, where can they find it?
You can find me at michellesmission.blog.
Okay, we'll put the link in the description below.
Yes.
Okay. We're moving on to our last question, and this is a question I ask every guest. Your answer will not change your life's journey so far, but if you had 30 seconds with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
I would tell my 13-year-old self that things are going to get better. You're going to be able to achieve what you want to do and all of your goals. You might have to do it a different route, but you're going to have a great life.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing with the blog and getting the message out there to people. I think it's a really important message, just to accept everyone. We're all different and we all learn different ways, and we've all got our own barriers, but if we work together, we can get there together. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. It's been a pleasure.